Give it.
Hi, I'm Will.
I'm Mason.
I'm Vance, and we're doing a breakdown and citation of the movie The Thing from 1982. So, Will, I'd like you to give us your breakdown. We'll go around, and then we'll give our citations.
So basically, I've never seen this movie before. Thought it was
Before yesterday, yes.
before last night. Yes, it was intriguing. I'm still in the middle area of good bad for the film because it's like I see the effects. I like that. It's a good script. The actors were good. I just didn't like the aspects of the mental capacity that my tiny, innocent like brain doesn't like the whole psychological warfare.
So you don't like that the movie made you uncomfortable?
Yeah.
That's good.
But that's what the movie's intended to do.
Oh, I
though.
know that that's what it's intended to do. I don't like that it did what it did.
Okay, I said this yesterday, and I want your input. For me, the movie wasn't as so much scary as it was unsettling.
well,
The only part that really scared me was when the stomach turned into a mouth and bit the dude's hands off. That was the only part for me that actually scared me.
That and the blood with the fingernails.
Yeah.
well. See, horror. The thing with horror is it's not always supposed to scare you. It's just supposed to make you feel uncomfortable. And this movie
Definitely did that.
Yeah.
So, continue with your breakdown because there's a lot to unpack here. What would you say in your breakdown? We can go. We'll each ask each other questions. But my question for you is with your because it was both of our. So Mason, the first one, no, he's already seen the movie. It was our first time, Will. So as two people that it was their first time seeing this movie, what would you say was the part of the movie that resonated with you in terms of a human aspect?
For one, just the overall like fear of like here you are isolated in Antarctica with barely any technology. As technology is beginning to evolve into what we know it as today, so you have all of that aspect. You're marooned in Antarctica, cold in the dead of winter, and then all those things are already going to give you cabin fever, hence paranoia to begin with.
Yeah.
And then you have this alien attack. So, I mean, that's kind of where it was like, it was already set up from the beginning to be like, here's cabin fever, paranoia thrown at you. Being in Antarctica in the 80s without anything to be able to help you pass the time. And the only form of entertainment, the dude broke in 10 seconds with coffee.
Yeah.
What about you, to throw it back at you?
For me, I think the part that was the most unsettling was, I think you kind of even touched on it better than I could. How quickly you went from paranoia or from like normal human reactions to paranoia. Like you see in one scene, they're talking about, oh, this thing it's not here to bother us. It just wants a life form, right? And then the next second, you hear Kurt Russell's character say, "If we come back to kill this thing and he's not with us, this certain person's not with us, light him up, like barbecue his ass." Like,
Yeah.
like that for me. You see the steady, but it wasn't even steady. Like it was a quick dive into like paranoia, and I think they did a really good job of showing that paranoia. For someone that's seen it, like for you, was there anything new that you learned from watching it again?
Well, last time I saw this movie was before last night. I was 12, so there was a lot of things I didn't pick up on that I picked on
What
this
did
time.
you pick up on this time?
The first big thing was how the music really accompanied with the like. It really made you feel.
We'll touch on
It really made you. It helped build up the film's like feelings of like dread that you keep getting.
I think you touched on it really well yesterday, or maybe one of you two did. That I think, or maybe it's both of you. I think you guys said every time you'd hear the music, you'd think a jump scare, something bad was going to happen, and it never did. The music was kind of like. Do you think the music was there just to throw you off?
Everything in that movie was to mess with your head, including the music, a compliment to it.
Yeah.
The music was great.
Back to your part in the music, so keep going with that. But I just wanted to.
Yeah, the music definitely was. I didn't notice that when I was younger because honestly, I just watched. I watched movies passively when I was younger, but now I'm more into it. Another thing I noticed was, a lot of the characters are not as likable and so I don't feel as bad when
That's
they
a
get
really
killed
good.
off.
I actually didn't think about that. You make a really good point that they are not as likable now. That's absolutely true. Why do you say that now, though? Like, what about you? What about the characters now gives you that idea?
Because they're all assholes. And I get, like, there's paranoia, but, like, say realistically here, would the three of us, if that happened to us, would we try to kill each other?
Eventually,
Eventually, yes.
Yeah. If we're being realistic, probably.
I would be the first one to be killed.
No, you'd be the first one to question everybody.
Yeah, and then therefore the two of you jump me and kill me.
I feel like the slip into madness seems a little abrupt, personally.
I agree with you, but at the same time, I understand it.
Yeah.
I agree that it's abrupt, but you can see why. Because they see a friend die in front of two friends die in front of their eyes. You're like, okay, one might be, because remember, one could be a coincidence. Two, probably not.
Yeah.
So, the one thing I wanted to ask was the setup of the movie. You mentioned throw you off in the beginning. I think the beginning of the first scene threw me off. I'm like, they're trying to kill a dog, and in my head, I'm like, I love dogs. You're shooting at a husky, and I love dogs, but I like you said, it was made to throw you off in the beginning. Touch on that a little bit more.
The other thing is, though, when you go back to the beginning with the dog, there's a few things. One,
They
like
don't
I
speak
said,
English.
no, cabin fever.
Yeah.
You hit a point where you start seeing things even if aliens weren't
I
existing.
think they mentioned that when the guy is possessed by the thing. Remember they gave him all the stats, like these guys were stuck inside for this long, they couldn't go outside, they didn't see any humans for this long. I think the thing that I want you to even touch on is I saw this, I don't know about you two. For me, I saw a man who, even though he spoke Norwegian, you couldn't understand him, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you could tell in his tone and in the way he enunciated that there was something wrong. You just couldn't understand the guy.
Yeah, but he also was on American property trying to kill.
He was in Antarctica, but I get you.
He attacked. Well, the base was.
the base was American
American, yeah.
property.
He attacked an American. That's a good way to start a war.
Yeah.
So I can see why they needed to stop him.
And then take out the alien aspect and even cabin fever. If that's your last food of survival that you have being up there, yeah, I would shoot the dog.
Yeah.
If it's between starving
Or
and
eating
killing a
or
dog?
eating something.
I'm going to go after that dog and go back to camp.
Yeah.
That's a fair point.
That's why it works so well, because one, you don't know
It
if
throws
it's
you off from the
survival,
start.
because you don't know if it's survival, you don't know if it's cabin fever,
Ill intent.
or because you know it's an alien horror film if that thing is it.
Yeah, ill intent.
But
behind
yet
it,
that
yeah.
never crossed my mind until now about it being that until it
Go
was
on.
revealed. Period. Because it's like, okay, where is this thing? And then it throws you off right at the beginning where it's like you just see a dog, you go, like every great horror film, there's an animal. It's going to probably be the
There's
first
an
victim.
animal.
And then it's like, oh, helicopter, and then he's shooting at it, and you're like, okay.
The one thing I will
In
say,
Antarctica.
just for a lighthearted moment here, that dude had a terrible shot.
I guess he was an
He had a
Imperial.
terrible shot.
Ex-stormtrooper.
Wow, yeah. Okay, the other thing I wanted to ask you, Mason, is you said again the first time you saw it you were 12. What else did you pick up on from seeing it a second time?
Well, when I was 12, I didn't know who Kurt Russell was. And so now...
A celebrity now, yeah.
So now, Kurt Russell being in it, that made me happy.
The 12-year-old you probably liked all the explosions at the end.
I did. That was... That always made me happy. I always thought...
There's never a bad time for I've said this. I'm going to die in this hill. There's never a bad time for explosions.
There definitely is. It's called 9/11.
In movies.
Anyways, the biggest thing I picked up on was how short the final battle was. I'm so happy it was. Movies drag out their final battles so much nowadays.
For those that might not be following, give us an example, because I agree with you. Like, give us a movie that like drug out its final way. Like, I have an idea, but I want, because this is yours, so I want you to do one.
Well, I don't want to exactly.
We'll go around the
Don't give it away,
table
don't
with
give
this
it away
one.
completely.
Well, we'll go with Spider-Man. We'll go with the original Spider-Man from 2002.
You think that one was dragged out too long?
Way too long.
I feel like
I will say a lot of the talking scenes didn't need to be in there.
I feel like they could have tried to kill each other faster.
Okay, if we're going off that, Iron Man 1.
Yeah, that one went on way too long.
Iron Man versus Obadiah. at the end of it.
You know what? No, I would go back. Iron Man 2. That went on way too long as well.
Syndrome versus Mr. Incredible on the island. Just his
Just
monologuing.
putting his finger, just holding him in the air.
Oh yeah.
For me, I'll go with, as much as I liked it, the oh goodness. I don't know why I feel this way, but I do. The Dark Knight final battle for me wasn't long. For me it wasn't long enough, because you see Batman's getting choked out, he kicks the Joker off of him and then dangles him from a building. That's an example of that, but I feel like that way Mason mentioned it, the final battle works well for the thing. It works well, but for a movie like Batman, you want to see, this is what it's leading up to. The main antagonist versus the main protagonist, and the fight lasted 30 seconds because he kicked him off of him, and then as he was falling down the building, shot his grapple gun, caught him, and dangled him from a building. I want to see the fight last.
You remember the main point was the Joker then said,
You gotta
I
remember the
turned Harvey into
White Knight
us.
and- yeah,
Brought him
White
down to
Knight
our level.
Yeah.
Therefore, that's why it mainly was. But speaking of final bosses and practical effects,
Yeah, let's touch on that. Go ahead.
on my lovely research from the article,
So what is your citation?
the article,
Like, what is the website?
that's what
Is
it
it
is.
literally called the article?
The article, yes.
Wow. Okay.
From
Um,
where?
The article.
Oh, that's cool.
It's the website.
He's
the
actually.
article.
You're actually not kidding, are you?
No, it's the article. It's legit. So basically, with it coming out in 1982, it's in between Star Wars, Empire, and then Return of the
There
Jedi.
wasn't a lot of CGI there.
So, and it even says later in the article, Star Wars is the reason ILM exists, which is Industrial Light and Magic, which is the birth of CGI.
Pre-computer.
So, like, everything of that, and like I said in class, it felt very Tim Burton-y to me.
I don't think a
Like
lot of people
Beetlejuice.
understand that. We, as media majors, we get that. Explain what you mean, though, because you're not wrong when you say that. But as media majors, we get that. Explain what you mean, though.
It's the aspect of Tim Burton, and I even said this again in class. It's like I feel like everyone borrows / steals ideas from each other that work to make better stories, because it's in Alien as well. You watch the first and second Aliens when there was no CGI there and all the practical effects, and you watch how claymation and
It
everything
makes
else
sense.
was back with the Christmas specials leading up to how Tim Burton did it with Nightmare and
Batman.
everything else. Tim Burton's Batman's live action. There's barely any claymation, anything. I'm talking more like,
But the first one especially was practical. The first
Yeah.
one.
but I'm saying based off of how he does it in Nightmare, Corpse Bride,
Yeah.
and Beetlejuice, how it's a
Those have
mix
Batman beat,
or
yeah.
straight up there. It's literally the practical effects, because literally at the end, the head at the beginning when it was first transforming looked like the snake head from Beetlejuice and even Nightmare.
Did say that, yeah.
And at the end, it also appeared again with the final 2-second boss. And it's like the weird looking, cool, weird mutated
Is
everything
something that
together.
He would make.
Yeah, and it even, as weird as this sounds and as corny, I'm bringing up my age. You remember the first Spy Kids?
Yeah.
And how all the moldable face was, and he was able
Yes.
to do it? Same motion. It's all that same style where it's like, let's make something wacko out of clay, make it either CGI or practical, and go from there.
You're saying their goal was, let's make the audience as uncomfortable as we can.
Let's make the odd possible and make it there. Let's put the Twilight Zone in somewhere the
let's make
Twilight
the
Zone
impossible
shouldn't
possible.
be. Except the impossible.
So I think the way that you stated that was really well done. But back to your article. So your citations.
It's basically, that's all it was. It was an article that was literally on everything that it was done, practical effects, and it gave the history of how it was and how it literally went from, it's really the start of the practical effect era,
So
ending into the CGI
I have
one.
a question for you as a movie lover, because you're like what. We
This
all
is my geek.
We all are media majors here, but Will is someone that watches movies at a deeper level than all of us. Like he'll watch a movie a few times to analyze what's going. He's even told me he'll watch it a few times to analyze what's going on with each scene, because isn't your dream? Because he and I's dreams are to be directors. Like that is what we want to do.
You're literally describing my daily basis.
But I wanted to get into this more because do you prefer practical effects or CGI? CGI is easier, but what do you prefer?
For one, it also will depend on my budget that I would be given.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Because clay takes forever to manufacture,
But it looks
get,
better in
and
the
mold.
long run.
It may look better in the long run, but if you look at how modern stuff is done, like the Avengers, etc., and all of that, look how great CGI has become to where it looks more realistic than even the reality stuff does. And yes, it's cool to then therefore look at the practical effects when they're there. I like it when it's blended and blended perfectly.
So you're saying don't use practical for the sake of practical,
And
Like,
don't
but-
use CGI for the sake of CGI.
Speaking of practical, do you know how practical the early Star Wars movies were? I actually showed him this. I don't know if I've told you.
Yoda
Mason.
was the puppet.
Yeah.
Not even that.
No,
When
Star
you got-
Wars was like.
When you guys see in episode 5, remember when the oh gosh, the name of the
Carbonite,
when the ship
Falcon.
Falcon, when it disconnects from the Imperial cruiser and it floats away with the garbage.
Yeah.
You know how practical they got? If you look at what was floating away, if you look close enough and pause the movie, you'll see
It's a toilet
You'll see a half-eaten potato and a shoe.
and a toilet.
Not kidding. A toilet lid, a half-eaten potato, and a shoe.
So just trash.
It was literally practical effects.
It was a trash compactor.
Yeah,
Imagine that.
It was literal practical effects. They used a
Never would've
shoe, a
guessed.
half-eaten potato, and a toilet seat lid. Like
So-
you can't get more practical than that.
I never would have guessed they'd have thrown trash into where they wanted us to think there
So
was trash.
But I'm
basically-
saying you wouldn't see that. Like you wouldn't see like in Star Wars times, you wouldn't see a shoe. Like that's like this was like a
So-
So
running.
they're all barefoot.
No, this was like a modern day running shoe. Like you
So
wouldn't-
Skechers is canon to Star
It was a
Wars.
long time
apparently-
ago. And apparently Vance has confirmed in 2024 potatoes are in the Star Wars universe.
yeah.
Interesting. How do you know it was a potato?
I watched a breakdown of the movie and they broke it like they had it super slow mo and they broke
Okay,
it
but
down
if-
scene by scene.
A shoe makes sense. You could figure that
A
out. But a
half-eaten
potato.
A toilet seat makes sense in Star
A half-eaten
Wars.
potato. I'm not kidding. They broke it down scene by scene.
How could you figure out it was a potato though? Like that's.
You could. It was brown. There was brown skin, and you could see it where it was bitten.
Okay, no comment. I'm not gonna go farther with
Okay,
that.
now I'll do my citation. Mine actually is going to be fun for you guys. Mine thing is actually 7 things you may or may not know about John Carpenter's The Thing from sci-fi.com. Alrighty, if you're compiling your Halloween horror watch list, we wholeheartedly recommend firing up John Carpenter's The Thing, 1982, now streaming currently on Peacock. So, interestingly, the first of the 7 things you may or may not know, John Carpenter is freakishly efficient on the set. The shoot for The Thing was a complex shot over 12 weeks of location and soundstage work at Universal Studios Hollywood. Because Carpenter demanded 2 weeks of intense rehearsals with the cast, he was able to run an incredibly efficient set where he got what he needed and then moved on. It's also impressive his veteran crew and cast, not including newbie Keith David. Secondly, this was Keith David's first ever film. A graduate of the Juilliard School of New York City, he was a decorated theater actor. David auditioned for the role in The Thing and didn't expect to land it. He did, however, and found himself surrounded by an ensemble of well-respected character actors, from Wilfred Brimley to Richard Mazer, who taught him all that he knows about recalculating his performance style for the big screen. Secondly, the helicopter sequence was done first by A.D. Larry Franco. The guy hanging out of the helicopter shooting at the dog was the film's actual assistant director, A.D. Larry Franco. Interesting little piece of cinema history or cinema history.
The
there.
Thing history.
As the guy who had to get things done on the set, he just buckled up with a pilot and the cameraman to get the sequence done. Could you guys imagine if you two are shooting a movie, like you're a director and Mason's assistant director, and you say, "Hey, go just shoot this dog out of a window for me." Like, that's what they were working with. That is crazy.
It's called budget and
Yeah.
time restraints.
Next one. The ASPCA thought the special effects dog was real.
Wow.
Ready?
It's
By all
almost like
accounts,
it looked like a real dog.
I know, right?
It did its job.
Ready? By all accounts, the special effects for The Thing were just as gnarly in person as they were in the finished film. David remembers they were so realistic that some of them even convinced set consultants and actors that these were real.
Interesting.
Yeah. A couple more. The chest opening sequence, when you see the chest running the teeth and bites a guy's hands off.
Okay.
The terrifying sequence when the creature bursts from the chest cavity of Norris, Charles Hallahan, and attacks Dr. Cooper, Richard Dysart, was also a nightmare for the production crew. They used a stunt double who was a double amputee wearing a face cast mask of Dysart for the reaction shot over the body. Meanwhile, the body on the table was a practical special effect, while Hanahan's real body was hidden under the table and just his head was exposed for more authentic reaction shots. The actor sat in a slanted chair for 4 to 5 hours as a special effects team blended the various parts of the table together. So you mentioned practical earlier, Will. It doesn't get more practical than that. It literally doesn't.
Actually, I can combat with one more.
Go ahead.
X-Men. I forget her name. Who was Mystique?
The Phoenix. Oh, not the Phoenix. No, not the Phoenix.
No, Mystique. I think it was Jennifer Lawrence.
I thought she was
I
Phoenix.
think it
I
was-
could be wrong.
I think it was in the early ones. Either
Mason,
way.
I think Mason look it up. I thought she was Phoenix.
Either
I could be
way,
wrong, though.
do you know the amount of hours that she had to sit there in the chair and be painted blue?
I don't even want to know, dude.
But that's the point. Like, it at least is authentic and pays off in the long run. But, like, people like Andy Serkis who do the motion capture, the amount of hours that they are.
This
is it?
person, because I can't say the last name.
Let me see it.
Rebecca. something.
Rebecca something.
Rebecca Roman. I'm gonna say it's.
Yeah,
It probably tells you how to say it.
it might be.
Romaine.
All right,
It's
two
not
more.
ramen.
Two more
No.
guys. Ready? How the compound was really easy to blow up. Remember when they're blowing up where they lived at the end?
Uh-huh.
Here's how it was so easy. The camp was built by production as an actual location and meant to brave the elements, but it was just movie construction grade, which looks sturdy, but it's actually very lightweight, so it can be destroyed after filming. Franco, the assistant director, said at the time they had to do a tremendous amount of wood scoring and deconstruction while using gasoline as an accelerant, so the buildings would actually blow apart dramatically and pop on camera. Because of that, the production crew had to be a mile away from the demolition just for safety reasons. They would load the cameras with full load of film and then ignite the pyro and run. Franco remembers they were ready to walk back to get the cameras, and one explosion lagged and exploded, which freaked the crew out. And lastly, they did several takes alluding to who was the thing. So I want to touch on something. We mentioned at the end of our class yesterday about the two at the end, Childs and McCready, about Childs maybe being the thing.
AKA Keith David and Kurt Russell.
Okay, thank you. That makes it easy.
So, before I touch on this, what do you guys think about that? Do you think Childs was the thing?
No.
Because remember, they said the director said yes. He's also said no. He's also said up to interpretation.
Honestly, if there was ever a sequel, which I agree with Humphrey on this one too, there shouldn't be. But that would be that. But at the same point, that's why the cliffhangers work, because it leaves it to conspiracy theories. And several of them are, as we've stated, one of those three options. I personally think Kurt Russell became it, or the guy that there is three left. One did not die on screen. Therefore,
You
we
don't see
don't
him die on
know
screen,
if
yes.
he's dead or walked away.
Maybe that was the up for interpretation part.
Okay,
Yeah, so basically there's three possibilities for who could be it, plus the no one's it, they got rid of it, or they're all it, and they're just waiting to die.
Go
well,
ahead,
my
Mason.
thing is, if Kurt
Mine.
Russell,
Okay.
if Kurt Russell was the thing, why did he kill?
No, they were saying
Big
he's
bit.
not. We already know he's not.
Well, he just said he thought he did. He was.
No,
I can go on off that all day. I think yeah,
They confirmed he wasn't because
it's Kurt Russell.
Okay, that's fair.
they confirmed he wasn't. But the last one I have is they did several takes again alluding to who was the thing. Here we go. In shooting the scene where McCready and Childs had survived but aren't sure if either is infected, David said that they shot the moment several times over, including takes where it was clear neither were infected, and the more ambiguous takes where neither knows if the other is infected. David never knew one way or the other if Childs was infected. But I think that the thing Humphrey mentioned, which is really interesting, remember when it's cold outside, so you would see McCready's breath, Kurt Russell, you'd see him breathing,
Yeah.
but then Childs would breathe out and you wouldn't see any breath, maybe alluding to the fact that he is the thing. Also the fact that when you cut to, when it's dark, when the lights go down in the shot, you can see the brights of Kurt Russell's eyes. Then you cut to Childs, you can't see the brights of his eyes. They don't sparkle.
Yeah.
Maybe Humphrey said maybe that's giving it away, maybe it doesn't. But I do think that is interesting.
I do think the reason why, not just to figure out how to make it more ambiguous, I wonder if he did it director style to do it several times over to confuse the actors, so that when fans,
I don't doubt that
so
for
when
a second.
fans, you know how many people go up to Mark Hamill and go, "Do you know what's gonna happen? Do you know what's gonna happen?" They go, "I
I
can't
don't
tell
doubt
you."
that for a second.
Back then, it was more not just the internet, but then back then it would be like they literally couldn't tell you, "I know or
Per-
don't know."
Per contract reasons.
Not even that, but like they legitimately wouldn't be
didn't
able
know.
to tell because
Yeah.
they can go, "We filmed it so many goddamn times."
And
I
diff-
have no
and
clue
diff-
what's
and-
real or
hey,
fake.
And different ways.
Yeah.
Like I remember Tom Holland, who's like bad at giving away spoilers. They would like give him the
No
script.
shit.
They would give him this is no like no. They would there's a deeper thing here.
I know.
Like they would give him the script, but like they would have who he's working with and what they're saying blacked out, so he couldn't give away anything. It got that bad on the set of Spider-Man and Avengers. Like he was swung to the point where like we can't give you anything. So when you show up at this time, you don't know who you're working with, what the other person's lines are. You just do your job and go home. It was that bad. You go ahead, Mason, with your sighting.
My sighting?
Yep.
Oh boy. Well, I
If
don't know.
his computer wants to load.
Yeah, I don't know how, but this is something I found interesting online. So apparently, this is from fandom.com, so probably reliable. The thing fared poorly at the box office because of the R rating by the Motion Picture Association. I can't speak. The Motion Picture
The MPA.
Yeah, that they rated the film R, and so that made it that helped in why it didn't do well at the box office. The film cost $15 million to make
What did it
or
make
to
if
produce,
What
and
did it make?
it had an opening weekend gross of $3.1 million.
Oh, that's tough.
And it's still considered a flop with that.
That's a major flop.
It went on to make $13 million
That's a flop.
domestically.
It didn't even recoup what it made.
Carpenter and other writers have speculated that the film's poor performance was due to the release of E.T. the Extraterrestrial 2 weeks earlier. Makes sense.
That does make sense, but here's the reason it was a flop, Will. Because usually for a movie breaking even is it's
You
cost
make-
15, you make 15. They didn't even make it.
You make exactly
They
what
didn't
you
even
do.
make 15. They made 13.
Yeah,
so
no.
that's a flop.
The film's groundbreaking makeup special effects were simultaneously lauded and lambasted for being technically brilliant but visually repulsive. Film critic Robert Ebert called the special effects among the most elaborate, nauseating, and horrifying effects yet achieved in Hollywood's new generation of visual magicians, and called the film itself a great barf bag movie. He criticized the lack of clarity in the plot and added that there was nothing wrong with the film's gross out ambitions.
Before you go on, he said the special effects were nauseating. For a horror movie, how is that a bad thing? What you just read, I get like, if you're watching a horror movie, how is that a bad thing?
Because I'm pretty sure he was used to the horror movies of Jason, Freddy Krueger, and Where's the More Murder, not the monster style.
Yeah.
Fair.
Like
You-
up
you- oh,
until
you're used to a certain thing. That's
They
what you
want
wanna
more
up
see.
until Alien, there was no monster alien that much. There was a little bit, but it was more like the B movie giant insect than an actual slasher
actual
like
thing.
Freddy Krueger and
Yeah.
Jason Voorhees and even Chucky.
Interesting. So
But
keep
Chucky
going.
came later.
Anyways, in his review for the New York Times, Vincent Canby called it a foolish, depressing, and overproduced movie that mixes horror with science fiction to make something that is fun as neither one thing or the other. Sometimes it looks as if it aspired to be the quintessential moron of the 80s.
Quintessential moron.
I don't know what to do with. I don't know. What to
3
say
years
about
later
that.
came your favorite movie.
Yeah.
I don't know what to do with that because practical effects to me are an amazing thing, but I think what you get to is a very valid point. You're used to seeing serial killers and you're used to seeing horror movies one way, but want to have an open mind for that.
Well, the biggest thing in here, as it says, is where to go. The poor performance was due to the release of E.T. 2 weeks earlier with its more optimistic scenario of alien visitation. It also I missed this part. The thing also opened on the same day as Blade Runner.
Oh,
Yeah.
That'll do it.
that right
That'll
there
do
just
it.
killed it.
That'll
Between
do it.
E.T. and Blade Runner.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that I missed that somehow.
Well,
But
The-
they're acting like the thing was like a bad movie.
Well, compared to Blade Runner and E.T., yeah, it was not.
Well,
back in the day, yes.
it's kind of like that movie that with George Romero, like you grew to love it over time.
Yeah,
Because, again, when it came out, it was bad. But now, because of movies that are worse than it coming out, it became better.
because
You know what I think it's crazy, and I think you just touched on a really important point here, Mason. We have computers today. How are movie productions and movies getting worse, but technology's getting better?
That's
Like I
because-
don't understand it. You can I'll give you an example. I love the game series Uncharted. Uncharted now has a movie. There's a
It's
part in the movie.
fantastic.
It's a great movie. There's one part of the movie that makes me mad to no end. There's a scene when he's falling out of a plane.
Yeah, I've seen the movie.
If you look at that, and I've paused it, he looks animated falling out. Like it's not real. He looks animated. You can
They
tell
just-
he's animated.
They just took it from the game.
They actually, well, he does. Well,
he's not animated. Everything around
no,
Tom
he's
Holland
not, he's
is.
a little bit. His hands are actually a little bit animated. So is his face. You can see it pretty clearly. But I'm saying, as technology's gotten better, why has the movies gotten worse? I think you made a really good point there. Why do you think that is?
Over budgeting, over producing, reshoots, and what was the other thing? Oh, yeah.
Actors' complaints.
That's a good one.
But if your budget's $200 million, you should never have a bad movie. I don't care what people.
Again, reshoots. Reshoots cost so much money, and studios keep reshooting all the time.
You
now.
have all of that. The budget for the film includes your crew, the
Actors.
actors, the time
Studio
that
time.
the studio is
Studio
going
time.
to give it,
Don't forget marketing.
marketing for it.
Well, marketing usually is different because you have a marketing director.
Yeah,
You
but
might
that's
have a
money
marketing
still goes
director, but it
into
still
it.
goes into it. Literally, yes, the Russos had a lot of money between both making them, but they made both Avengers movies together. They made both Harry
Back to back,
Potters
yeah. That last two
together.
back to back, yeah.
That's the point. The reason why the bigger ones that are the two parts got a bigger budgets because they decided to film them together and release them separately, which made them make more in the long run.
Yeah.
The two parts work when they're done correctly.
Yeah.
Now, before we go here, because we've got 7 minutes, I want to ask you guys, because we touched on our citations, what do you guys think about? I think you made a really good point here. Elaborate on done correctly, because I think we all agree with you, but for those that don't understand what you mean by done correctly.
For done correctly, I would say, like, don't just make sequels to make a sequel, to make more money off of it, like they've done with Toy Story, that they've done with Frozen, even Star Wars to an extent. Terminator's getting there. Sorry, Humphrey, but Alien might be getting to that point too. I mean, it's been
Yes.
yes, but no, because the FEMA one might suck, but Afterlife is good, and I need to see Frozen Empire to
Yeah.
make that jurisdiction.
Ghostbusters is definitely
like,
getting there, though.
It's
It's
getting 100% getting there.
it's
yes.
getting there, but Ghostbusters is just like with what we're gonna probably see on Friday with Mad Max. It has a lot of movies, but because of the amount of time that's passed between the last one, not only are they giving
The
it
last
time,
Mad Max movie was 2015.
15.
Yeah.
Yeah.
but like not only all of that,
And then
but
before
like
that was 85.
you're getting time to be able to be like, let's make a decent story out of it. Let's get decent actors that know how to act and actually enjoy this franchise. Because that's the other key part.
Do you know what I've actually read recently with a lot of great movies? I don't know why I keep reading this. Mad Max, The Fury Road, the most recent one.
yeah.
Charlize Theron, Tom Hardy literally couldn't stand one another a great movie. Christian Bale and Tom Hardy did not get along.
That's a,
Great movie.
the original actors for R2D2 and C3PO didn't get along.
No.
That's what I'm saying. So I've been I would die on this hill. When actors put egos aside, movies are great. But I think there's some element of like human, not ignorance is the word I'm looking for. Human like disgust for like another human that like I want to outact them. I want to do this scene better than he can. And I read about Mad Max Fury Road. It said Charlize Theron and Tom Hardy didn't get along to the point where they were trying to see, you did that, let me outdo you. They were trying to outdo one another. They were trying to see like the movie became that good because they're like, I don't like you, I'm going to try and do it better. I think it can be a good thing, but it can also be a very dangerous thing.
Because then it can be a good thing if they're mature enough to realize we're here to make a great movie.
For the fans, yes.
And I'm only here to outdo them in the case of work and not outdo them
in
to
life,
to outlife them or outdo anything. They're just doing it to make a product. Now, I did want to touch on, as we said about time moving forward, what do you think the Rotten Tomatoes score is
For this movie?
for The Thing? What would you give
Give
it
us
for?
give us a range. Because I don't want to be way off. Give us a range.
Passing grade. From 70 to a 90. Between the passing grades.
So it's
between
it's
the
somewhere
grades of
between
C
there.
and an A.
It's somewhere in there.
Yeah.
I'll go 71.
No.
Don't cheat.
Okay, before I looked, I would say probably around.
Is this audience or critic score?
This is the critic, like the actual tomato.
I would have said like 80-ish, 81, 82.
It's 88,
What is the audience score?
92.
I
So,
have a
like,
feeling.
I don't think it's, and I think it's also like, you know how we said before, like, time makes things better or worse. Once people put aside the Blade Runner and the E.T. and everything else, like literally,
This movie's great when you put
like,
that aside, yes.
if you also think about it, 1980, Empire Strikes Back. 1983, Return of the Jedi.
It split
79,
those, yeah.
77 was Star Wars. 79 was Alien. Then you have
79
Empire.
79 was the first Mad Max.
as well as that. But you have so many bangers within one genre that this one slipped under the radar because it was registered as a horror. Not just sci-fi, but a horror.
Before we go
Yeah.
here, I want to ask one other thing because I think I have it on my phone here. I had it written when you were speaking. I was like taking some notes. Why do you think the rating hurt this movie? Because I agree. Part of me thought it shouldn't be R. Part of me thought it should be. Do you think it being R hurt the movie?
Well, R-rated movies back in the day, we don't have they didn't have the internet in the 80s to the extent we do now. So you couldn't just go and see why it was
You'd
R-rated.
have an adult with you, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, not only that.
And
Well-
movie hopping probably wasn't as big a thing back then.
Well, not
Yeah.
not only all of that. Usually back then, without the internet, R usually meant sex is in the movie.
Yeah. That was the big thing.
Or some sort of nudity, yeah.
Not at all. Even if it was dictated as, and we don't know how this film was marketed, so we don't
That's
know
your
if
point.
it was like a horror. Because that's another thing. We know that not a lot of the population on this planet enjoyed this type of genre.
It's a
So
very small percentage of people, but those people,
a
but,
lot,
but again,
a lot in that small margin.
Yeah.
again, they're very loyal in that
They are
small
loyal.
margin.
Oh, yeah.
It's kind of like the Star Wars population. But, like, literally, it's like, to go back with that, it's like, if the horror fanatics all went to it that were of age,
That's probably the 13 million it made.
that was that.
There's
the-
nothing else it could have
The
been.
other percentage that they could have
Or
made,
it's just so different than anything else. Like Star Wars was just so different that it took off.
and Star Wars was also meant to fail, but that's another time.
It,
if-
that's a podcast for another time. It was made to fail, but it was also just so different. Everyone wanted to see what made it so different.
Yeah.
Which
And
I mean, I think the thing, maybe that's the reason because maybe it was so different, but not. I think Will mentioned it was different, but not in a way everyone liked.
The other thing is, too, watching it after watching Alien, it ripped off a lot of the concepts of the xenomorph,
Yeah.
of what that monster would do. Like literally the stomach scene that we all know, regardless if you've seen Alien or not, you know what the stomach scene
Yeah.
is when it comes out eventually. There's that. The head literally walking is a form of that, plus Beetlejuice.
Yeah.
So you have all these elements that are related to so many other products that people also just get tired of.
I mean, the story,
Recycled.
The story itself is from a Twilight Zone episode.
There you go.
But in saying that, they did put their own spin on it, which we can applaud.
Yes.
They put their
Yeah.
own spin on
And
it.
the actors acted well. The script was very well written. It's just it came out at a time when
Huge
every-
movies came out with it.
not just all huge movies, it came after huge movies, it came after huge movies, and it was marketed to 1 percentile, the horror fanatics, and that's literally, as Mason put it, or
They're
you said it,
loyal. Yeah.
not only loyal, but the 13 million that it made was the percentile that actually went to it.
Yeah.
Do you think
Unless you had fake IDs
before
back
we,
in the
before
80s.
we go here, do you guys think that horror? Because Mason, you're a big horror movie fan. Do you think, as a horror movie fan, because I don't, are you, Will?
I'm slowly getting there.
I'm not, but I'm getting there. You, as a horror movie fan, if you were alive in '82, would this have been a movie that you would have liked if you were alive then, or would this movie have just been like, oh, that's just done, they're ripping people off? Or is it because you're alive in this generation, you see it for what it truly is?
I think it depends. My taste in movies definitely has been influenced by the internet to begin with. So without the internet, I don't know what to say for sure. But as a horror movie fan, just horror movie alone, I think this did it well. It wouldn't have been my favorite, to be honest, but
Oh, it's nowhere
At least
near.
At least you're truthful about it.
for
yeah.
what it is, I'd say it's pretty good.
I mean, it's. I know I'm not only trying for brownie points, but it's literally true. It's good. Alien did it all better. Alien 3 did it all better.
extended version, director's cut.
The
yes.
extended, but like literally that. Like I would rather watch the decapitation of all the orcs in Lord of the Rings before going back and watching this.
Yeah.
100%.
And again, we're not saying it's a bad movie. We're not.
It's
saying
not a
that.
bad movie
We're
at
not saying
all.
It's a bad movie.
It's just I'd rather watch and waste my time in a different universe than going to Antarctica in 1982.
You would watch
Yeah.
it again. You'd watch it again, but it wouldn't be. It'd be down the list.
If it was on TV, if I had nothing else to do with my life,
Sure.
yeah. It wouldn't be the, I feel like watching The Thing today,
It's a movie you
It's
put
not a
on
bad
in the
movie.
background while
Yeah.
you're like doing the dishes or something.
Yeah.
doing homework.
Yeah.
Oh my God, he got his hands cut off. Back to work.
So yeah, I get you. Like you would. It'd be on your list, but it'd be pretty far down. So
Yes.
But now, before we go, do you guys think? I had one other question that I had written down here before we go. Do you guys think that horror movies today are better or worse now?
I would
Oh,
say
they're
worse. Yeah.
I would say this. I think they've gotten scarier.
And
No.
that's what makes them worse.
Hear me out. They've gotten scarier.
Mm-hmm.
The editing has made it not as overall like certain scenes are scarier than like there's certain scenes in the Babadook and The Exorcist that are just ridiculously scary, but overall the movie's not as scary. I think there's certain scenes that with having CGI make you like when I watched the Babadook that my hair on my neck was standing up for certain scenes. When you see what the Babadook looks like for the one time only, I was freaking out. I think certain scenes with CGI can make or break it.
Yeah.
So so you think today it overall has made it worse? Why do you say that?
I think horror as a genre has declined in quality simply because there are so many low-budget horror movies, and they're all terrible.
I think it's something you mentioned yesterday, which was really good in class. You mentioned you liked that didn't overuse jump scares.
Yes.
Explain that.
Every movie, it doesn't even have to be a
There
horror
was what,
movie.
maybe two.
In
Or
that
you,
movie.
you counted three, right? You counted three.
The issue is every movie today, it doesn't even have to be a horror movie. Just to get some tension, they use a
Yeah.
jump scare.
And like, what other things do for that to make them worse is of how the music. That's why I was so worried, like when the music built up, because that's what the horror genre is now. The music gets tense, it gets tense, it gets tense, and
Jump
then
Yeah.
it becomes predictable. And
You like that wasn't predictable.
that's what made it enjoyable, is because I couldn't picture it. I hate, even
you
if
were
it's
waiting
not,
on it, and you were.
I'm always going to wait on it.
Yeah.
But like, even if it's not horror, I hate where I've seen enough movies where I can see it and I will still enjoy certain things because of that. But if it's a thing I'm already not enjoying as a full like genre, like with sci-fi, we'll always go to a Star Wars. Don't really care how the plot goes. Always will do that.
Yep.
Everything with Disney, blah blah blah. But like, if it's a genre that I'm not so much of a fancy of,
You want to find the right movie.
I don't want to be. I'm sitting in this thing and I know where it's going. That's why I
So
hate
you don't want it to be
rom-coms.
predictable.
That's why I hate rom-coms.
Yeah.
That's why I
And
hate
Hallmark
watching Hallmark.
movies.
Too predictable. You know how they end.
The
Yeah.
guy gets the girl. Romance finds the
So
true
How
you-
has
love.
Hallmark
so
made
you-
so
you-
much
so
damn
overall-
money?
So before we go, overall, you like that you couldn't predict the jump scare.
Yeah,
You
and
you don't like being able to predict what's going to happen.
I hate predicting everything in a movie. I want to go to escape, to have my brain think
you want
about
to escape
that.
reality, yeah.
To not only to escape, but to be able to think, how is this figuring out before I walk out of that damn
And
theater?
then watch it again later, yeah.
And then go, I have to think about this, this, and this immediately after leaving. I want to be able to sit down, watch something, think about that, and be in the now, which is what I'm trying to just work my brain to do just in reality. But, like, that's the purpose of a movie, is to escape. And when a movie does that, to make you think in the moment as to how this is going to go, that's when it's well made. Not when I can see the plot coming from 12 different directions.
I think
Oh,
the
well, I
only
saw that
for
coming.
me, I think the only times when you know what's coming and it's acceptable is like superhero movies. Like
No.
I'll explain why. I'll explain why.
No.
Because when they introduce a villain, you can usually tell at the end of this movie there's gonna be there's gonna be a fight. That's what I mean.
I would
like-
prefer if they didn't do that every
But
superhero movie.
I'm saying, but like you watch like you watch the first Superman. They show Lex Luthor. You know at the end of that movie he's gonna fight Lex Luthor. You mentioned Spider-Man 1, Green Goblin. You know at the end they're gonna fight. You don't know what's gonna happen, but you know they're going to. So it's predictable in that way. But if it's
And
well
I've
done,
never-
it's well done.
I never would have guessed he'd get teleported to another universe.
And that
But I'm
is-
just saying you would have predicted in the first one, even if it's predictable, it's still well done.
And that's why when
Eh.
it comes to the superhero genre, they get the bigger actors to draw people into it, because it's always
It's kind of predictable. Yeah.
it's always the same formula. Good guy shows up, saves damsel in distress, villain gets
Yeah.
defeated, end of day.
Iron Man pretty much set the standard for.
Once Iron Man
every
came out, you
superhero
couldn't do
movie.
anything else.
Yeah.
Even The Dark Knight follows the same tributes as that.
the second one especially.
But like literally it's the same movie, rinse and repeat.
The third one,
It
not
is-
really. That
no.
was the third one was way different.
The concept
The
and
concept, yes, but
that's
the
what I'm
story
saying.
overall, way different.
the story is still the same. Bad guy comes from out of nowhere, destroys half the city. Batman comes to beat him up.
Batman couldn't beat him until like the last 5 minutes of the movie.
Oh
He
my
still
God, that's
beat
the
him.
point
my
of the
is, though-
film.
My point is though, he didn't beat him. Who actually beat Bane? If you guys remember in the movie, he didn't beat Bane.
Yes, we know. Okay, it was.
She shot him.
Yes, we know. But
That was my point. That's why you guys.
Batman still
See-
beat the hell out of him.
He didn't. He
he
landed.
did most of the work.
He landed in the entire movie. As again, I own the movie. He landed two.
So do we.
In the entire last fight, he landed 2 punches. Bane landed 23. But we'll go with it. He beat the hell out of him, but he landed 2 punches. We'll go with that, boys.
Two
He-
punches that were vital punches.
He punched him in the gut twice. He got punched in the face 20 times. I'd rather be hit here than here. I'm gonna be
No.
honest.
In the final fight,
In
it
the final
was
fight, he
it was blocked, and then he went for the mouthpiece that disabled Bane that he couldn't fight because he was trying to put it back together. That's how
I meant
Batman
I meant
kicked
total
him in.
hits. Yeah.
Getting hit in your organs is way worse than getting hit in the face.
I'm saying
As-
total hits.
Okay, but as a former football player, you don't get hit in the organs. That is just. You always try to get hit anywhere but
Drop
the
tackle,
organ.
yeah.
Okay, can we get back on the thing because it's Batman?
All right. So the last one I had before
Batman
we go is
versus the Thing.
where do you stand again for last one for you as a horror movie guy? Where would you rank this on your all-time? Like if you had a top 10, like 1 to 10, what would you give this?
Out of like just
1 to 10, 10 being watch again 100 times, like 10 being best horror movie, 1 being once is enough.
we'll give it a 6. Maybe no, we'll give it a 5.5.
I would have honestly thought you would have went way higher. I
No.
honestly would have.
I have a very high what's it called criteria for good movies.
Standard.
Yeah.
Criteria
What would you
standard.
give it?
I would actually give it the same score of 5.5.
Oh yeah.
For a horror movie, for me, because I don't watch many, I'm going to give it like a 7, because, again, I don't watch. If I had more to watch, I could have something to go off of. I've watched a total of 4 in my life.
Well, you're gonna watch a lot more than that.
Oh yeah.
For right now, I'll
we got
give it a
3 weeks
7.
of this shit.
For right now, just a 7. All right, so this has been our first podcast about the movie The Thing from 1982. Thank you guys for listening.